A very warm welcome to this Sunday's game, a whole new format so you can see this ugly mug, but you see a much nicer looking mug in just a moment. I'm Alan Moore, of course, the PRO for GGE Games Europe, and I am delighted to say that we have gone vodcasting. Yeah, we used to have our podcast, and we still will have that, but now we're doing a little bit of video as well to give you a bit more interaction, and I hope a bit of enjoyment as well. Now, of course, to kick off this new autumn season of this Sunday's game, we have to start at the very, very top. And a man who has, blended us all together, has melded us all together, and has actually brought us through COVID and into a whole new period, a time of very exciting developments in GGE Games Europe. I'm delighted to welcome on to tell us all of what we are about to see coming up this autumn, Mr. John Murphy, all the way from Amsterdam, the chairperson of GGE Games Europe. John, you're very welcome on.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Alan. Thanks for having me on.
So, John, first of all, I'll put the photo up in a moment, but it's an oldie one. But an oldie is always a good one because we'll have a little bit of a video celebration in just a few minutes for Amsterdam. Congratulations for another European Championship. It was a hard-fought one and an awful lot more interest in the European 15-a-side championships this year than I think ever before, John.
Yeah, I think this has been a wonderful second consecutive year we've had Iberian representation. So last year, Madrid got to the final. This year, Barcelona got to the final after overcoming Paris in the semi. And then, on our side of the semi-final, we had a quarter-final with Belgium and then Luxembourg. So kind of a Benelux flavor on our side of the draw. But yeah, the standard is increasing every year. I think anyone that was watching the live Twitter updates will realize Barcelona were ahead at halftime, and throughout that second half was very nip and tuck till the very end when kind of Amsterdam stretched out and kind of just got it over the line. So yeah, hard fought. So we enjoyed the celebrations afterwards.
John, do you think that the experience, especially that last year you did so well against St. Mark's and Tala, and I mean, as you mentioned, we were live tweeting that, and it was a real cracker of a match, and you did come close to possibly pulling off, I believe, one of the greatest upsets in the Leinster Junior Championship.
Yeah, so I think we're ahead at the second water break by a point against St. Mark's. No, I could be wrong, but I think it was very close. And I think, that last quarter, when that water breaks came in, right, they kind of made Gaelic football into kind of quarters. I think that last quarter kind of killed us. Yeah, to go back and have another crack off it, Alan, for us is nice. I think we have unfinished business. For Amsterdam, it's all about getting over that line. A lot of teams would have played us in Benelux this year and kind of felt we had our eyes on another prize, and we kind of did. We 15s, we felt we left a little bit on that pitch. We didn't give everything. So yeah, it's unfinished business for Amsterdam. So yeah, we're going to keep going until we get that historic win. And who knows, it mightn't be us, but I think as long as we keep pushing that level in the 15s every year in Europe, that whoever beats us continues to keep that level, keep raising the bar, eventually it will come for a European team to win for the first time in Leinster Junior Club.
That's what I want to say, because this year, and we did note it, of course, on the podcast earlier on this year, and we had a good discussion about it as well. And I pushed you, in maybe a bit unfairly, to say, where are you taking your eye off the ball locally because you were looking forward? Because you were fielding two pretty much equal strength teams in competitions. And personally speaking, I thought it was visionary, but from the kind of the old school European, old school Irish, they're thinking you put your best 15 together and then the dregs with the rest. But you guys really persevered with it, and it's paid off again.
Okay, so I don't think dregs is an awful.
No, dregs.
But no, I think how we looked at it was you get limited game time in Europe, right? So you have to maximize your game practice and your game sharpness, right? So if we stack one team, even if we picked our best 15 and put them on one team, you can only still play 11, right? So you're still going to have rotation. When you split a team, and we're fortunate in Amsterdam to have 25, 30 lads that are of a high standard, competitive nature, you offer everyone more game time at a higher level. You put in those game time scenarios. And yeah, we ourselves were probably, I don't know if the rest of them will admit it, but I was like, geez, will we put it all back together now? we got a 15. And I think we did. Having that run out, for that kind of preliminary quarterfinal against Belgium, we seemed to have a good cohesion flowing back. And then, when we got to the Luxembourg match, I think it did kind of come together. But we're fortuitous in that, right? Some clubs, they can get to that, fielding just 11 or just 15, or some clubs are growing where they have to amalgamate, which is great, right? So for us, we're fortuitous, but we don't want to either take it for granted. So splitting the team equally gave, everyone as much game time scenario as possible, as many scenarios. I think we talked about this last time, when you're in a match, understanding how much time you have on the ball, what angle you're shooting from. You can do practice drills of shooting unmarked, not under pressure all day. But then when you're in the game, when, it's the final kick, when you're down by a point, that's the scenarios you want to practice. And splitting our team like we did gave as many people those opportunities as possible.
Now, John, looking at the team from last year, of course, you're there front and sort of slightly left of centre as you're looking at us here at the moment.
Yeah.
How many of that team played again this year in the 15s, John?
Rough estimate, I'd say we'd have 70%, 75%. So we've been fortunate to carry a lot of this team over. I think the backbone of the 21 team has come into 22, which is great. And then we've obviously added a few new players as well, which has helped our depth. I think when we won it in 2018, we lost a lot of players. Like, I think it was a huge turnover. And we saw that in, 2019, where Berlin actually, stormed to the European title. And we also struggled in the 11-a-side with a huge turnover. So 2018 to 2019, we saw a big turnover. This year, we've been a bit more fortuitous, where we've had a lot of that core from the 21 team come into 22, which has been very helpful.
And Moscow Shamrock spoke up against Berlin in regional play, and they could have fielded 3 teams. They were that strong, and all of the 3 teams that they would have fielded would have finished probably, well, one maybe second and maybe 5th place over. They were just very, very good themselves. In Munich, pushed us over very hard. What is it? We'll move on from Amsterdam now in a second. We're just like picking up Amsterdam all the time.
Yeah. There's plenty more clubs around the place.
So, exactly. Yeah, we've over 100 clubs in Europe, so we'll move a little bit.
And the other thing, while we're discussing Leinster, right? There's hurling, the 15-a-side hurling championship. So for the first time ever, we're doing a hurling 15-a-side competition. Leinster have been kind enough to also facilitate us to participate in that. So I think, this weekend it's Belgium, Luxembourg, a German amalgamation team, and Amsterdam playing in the semi-finals. So, you know what? The Amsterdam lads could have been slogged away in football for a few years, and then maybe the Luxembourg hurlers go out and make history as the first European team to win. So, we spent a lot of time talking about Amsterdam, but we've now, as a county, a second shot at creating history with the hurlers this year. So, and that's thanks to Leinster being kind enough to extend the invite.
And that's it, John, because I mean, I wanted just to ask you, but just in terms of Amsterdam, an awful lot of native born. Now, we hate saying that, but that's the kind of the naming or the title we can give. Like,
I think we're going with local, actually.
I think it's
Paris strategic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like local, like we've got like local players, so players who are born in Germany or Finland or whatever. In Germany, for example, they've really taken up with a real grow. They've taken up hurling, and that has really pushed it on. In Amsterdam as well, how many of your, let's say, panel would be non-Irish?
If you had to take in, I suppose, all 4 main codes, so ladies and men's football, camogie, and hurling, you're probably talking about 10% would be local. So we'd be a team that wouldn't be have a huge sprinkling of international appeal, but I know like there's some other clubs like was a Prague were off the ball recently, and they had a great sprinkling of internationals. Obviously, when we go to Galicia for the European 11-a-side, we're going to see a lot more teams with Galician and Spanish representation. So I think it kind of depends. Unfortunately for Amsterdam, we're a little bit homogenous maybe. But other teams, it kind of varies team to team. I think overall, if we did some rough maths, I think we're about 30 to 40% international on registration, but that's ballpark.
But that's very good. That's very good. John, moving on from that, of course, we're talking about the growth of clubs as well. Over 100 clubs now under our aegis, doing very, very well in terms of opening clubs and sustaining them as well. And I want to just mention the youth, because we did a special podcast on this as well. Our youth sector, we had a Fela. The kids went to it's been very successful. And the one thing we would say, like, what would it take, for example, John, to get it to a level where you see it, because you've been in the States, where you see how it is where kids go out and play locally. So there's actually like we would understand at home, there's juvenile sections in clubs. What will it take to get there, John, for Gaelic Games Europe?
A lot of hard work, to be honest. I think there's a lot of work being put in to this point, but as a county board, we have to commit to helping that. I think in 2021 we did the first 2 youth tournaments in France and Benelux. This year we've done a few more. In fact, last weekend Benelux held their second youth tournament in 2022 in Den Haag. So a shout out to Den Haag that was a Trojan amount of work after Luxembourg were hosted earlier in the year in June. So I think we just have to keep, as a county board, we need to invest and put in the effort, because you certainly have the people with the enthusiasm, the passion, and the commitment at the grassroots, right? There's parents going out in the absolute lashing rain on a Sunday morning, training kids for an hour, for 2 hours. So, there is that grassroots passion and viability. It's about the county board stepping up and supporting. And it kind of, starts with when we talk about this strategically. Okay, so the Fela was the first step. We felt after the youth championships last year that there was a gap, right? So we went up to under 12. What do we do next group? So that's the under 15s. The Fela kind of facilitates that, and then you're kind of stepping up maybe to a minor. And that will come, right? We can't do it all in a year or two. It takes, building the foundation. So I think we've definitely got our eye on the right prize with this to get to what you talk about, what the ABCs are in Britain and the Continental Youth Championships are in North America. That will take time. I think carving it out as a separate pillar in our strategic plan for 2023 to 25 is one of those points. The second is that we're going to do a youth-focused weekend in Brussels on the 19th of November. So there's emails gone out to the clubs asking for them to send coaches. The aim is we bring all the youth coaches together, talk about different things going on, share ideas, and then they go away, with some fresh ideas and also a network, right? You talk about clubs playing in kind of a parish mindset of, the under 12s are going next door. We don't have that. So a lot of our youth clubs, even more so than the adult clubs, have to travel. So having that network of, I can WhatsApp or call maybe someone that's 2 hours away, to set up a match. That takes some time, coordination, planning. But, doing this networking event in Brussels, we think will, 1, start to create a stronger network, 2, kickstart that youth pillar. So we're not coming into, we'll say this time 2023, where we're almost a year in to a strategic plan and then addressing it. We're actually trying to get out in front of it. And then finally, create that sense of importance, right? Like for me, it is a big achievement as we continue to grow youth. And I think the county board is also bought into that. So it's about us showing that we're committed to this long term. And it's not just a flash in the pan, one tournament, have a big hubbub, pat ourselves in the back, but actually get down into the weeds and put our shoulders behind the wheel of exactly the same way the parents and coaches are doing it in these youth clubs.
In saying that, like continue, like kind of on the vein of sort of, if we say the youth is kind of like almost a minority segment of sport, because in fairness, there's more adults playing than children at the moment. Handball has also seen a real growth. I mean, that has surprised me all along. And there's competition on this weekend as well. I think it's in Slovakia. One wall in Bratislava. Yeah, that's right. And I should say this weekend, as in being like Saturday, the 8th. and it's very, very busy time in Europe at the moment. But John, how important is handball? Because not all GA people from Ireland would have, met this sport. So why should there maybe be a bit of a focus? Because it'll actually suit some local players as well.
Right. So handball, I think, is part of a bigger outlook on the GA. So moving the mindset from ladies football, men's football, right? Like this narrow perception to actually going, hey, we have 6 codes as a collective. Okay. So we have the 2 footballs, camogie, hurling, handball, and rounders, right? So we need as a mindset to incorporate all, right? It's different skill sets. So, we can bring more players in and more of a community. I think, we talk a lot about the 4 white lines in GA a lot, right? So the 4 white lines are a match, right? Something competitive, Alan. The community aspect is about 95% of what we spend our time, which is meetings or training or social events. Any way we can broaden and strengthen that community and network needs to be embraced. Handball is another piece of that jigsaw, whereby maybe people that would have more, better hand-eye coordination or would enjoy a squash or racquetball, or I think is a pelote in the Basque Country, those kind of sports, they can also, be included in our organization as we go forward. So yeah, I mean, it's just brilliant to see, right? It's something that you don't need to get 2 goalposts, you just need a wall. Right, so it's like kind of a low entry in some ways, but maybe an aspect of the Gaelic games family that we haven't looked at. And in fairness, Ben Groveman has done a lot as handball officer to promote it, and I know France as well, also as a region, or Northwest as a region, are doubling down as well. So look, it kind of took a few people to roll up their sleeves and actually put in the work, but it's already bearing fruit, and long may it continue.
We've got rounders as well, but that's a story for another day. And of course, we have all our cultural things like our Irish dancing music and so on, which we have gone through. And again, we were quite successful, especially during lockdown. We were making it happen. But again, as you said, it takes people to roll up the sleeves and get it on. Now we're moving ahead with time fairly quick. First of all, this weekend, of course, as you mentioned, around the 15-a-side hurling championships coming up. John, what are your hopes for hurling in Europe? Because a lot, like it's a sport that we, again, in Ireland we kind of grew up with, but grew up with only if you're in certain parts of the country.
Yeah,
where you're used to it. Like if you walk around in Kilkenny, the walkway with hurls in the hands, literally everywhere in the streets. You go to some parts of Meath, the same thing. They love their hurling. You go to some parts of Northern Ireland, and it's Gaelic football only. So, what are your hopes for hurling, John?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's safer to walk around a hurley than a Gaelic football in Kilkenny. Now they do have a junior title now, so they seem to bloody win at everything they do. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how the growth of our games in Europe has replicated how it's grown in Ireland, right? Where you have certain parts where hurling catches on and camogie catches on, but it's not as homogenous or extensive as football. I think that kind of also comes down to the barriers for entry for the sport, right? You need to get the hurleys, you need to get the helmets. There is, a high level of, there's a sharp learning curve with hurling camogie. So I think for that, it takes, it's just trickier, right? So we have to be cognizant of that. And I think, Fiona, our camogie officer, and Chris, our hurling officer, have worked with our coaching officer, Yano, to start looking for hurling tutors. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to us. And camogie tutors, right, to actually upskill, because it does take a lot more concerted effort to refine those. Now, I think also the thing about is in certain places you have things like field hockey, right? So I live in the Netherlands. There's quite a huge take up in field hockey. So who knows, maybe hurling camogie will catch off there. What is my end goal with hurling? I don't know. Sky's the limit. I mean, why should we impose anyone's preconceptions? I just want it to spread as widely as possible and to incorporate as many people of, male and female or any other gender into it, and that they get, great enjoyment and feel part of our community.
Now, when I say hurling, of course, I do mean hurling and camogie. Both I call hurling that men play hurling and women play hurling. So please don't.
No worries. Yeah.
Don't judge me. Okay. final kind of thing I want to bring up, John, is of course a huge historic event that's taken place in just over a week and a half now, that had a kind of a trial run. So if FIFA have the Confederations Cup the year before the World Cup, but they didn't have it in Qatar. But anyway, that's another different story. But we had, of course, this summer we had the European Games, the Gaelic football games, and I mean, they did very well. They were broadcast well. It was very enjoyable. It was great fun. There were lots of teams, and it was competitive. Some games were one-sided, but it's a learning curve. Like, everyone has to develop it. It was well run, and of course, then, as I said, just over a week and a half's time now, we're expecting the European 11 aside. John, how important is it that it's been held down in Galicia, in A Coruña? How important is it for Gaelic games in general, and how important is it for a recognition of the work being done in, let's just say, we'll say local areas?
Yeah, okay. So how important, I think for us as a county committee, we're committed to, understanding that every place is accessible to every other place, right? So, a lot of people would have come to finals previously in Maastricht, and then Vienna in 2019. I think as we continue to grow, it's important to move them around. So we're committed to move our convention, the hurling, pan-European hurling rounds, and the football championship, 11 aside and 15, right? First time we hosted it outside of Maastricht was down in Rennes for the men and ladies football, 15 aside. So congratulations to Belgium after a great performance against Rennes in the ladies football. But it's important that we kind of be cognizant that we do have this sprawling geographical regions. So we have to be, move stuff around to allow, people ease of access. Sometimes it's more difficult, but if you're always keeping it into one location, it's always the same people that suffer. So moving this around is, critical to our development as a region. In terms of Galicia, I mean, I think everyone's sick of me talking about it, but I don't get sick of talking about it. These lads are magnificent. I mean, the energy at which they're growing our base is phenomenal, right? We had now this, us having the European finals down there predates. This was a decision taken in 2020. Then COVID scuppered it. Thankfully, they've been generous enough to continue to keep the door open and willingness to host. So it's kind of fruition of that thing that has taken a while to materialize. But in terms of Galicia as a story, like you said, they had the Euro Cup in the summer. They've been working with schools. So on the back of what they did with the TV Galicia pilot, this year they went from an All-Ireland semi-finals and final last year to doing them again. Plus they've added in the ladies football semi-finals and finals. They're now signed an agreement with the Board of Education there. And I think they've touched about a catchment of about 4,000 kids, which is incredible in March to June. So like, this is the kind of stuff that's a leading light and almost a best practice. I'm going back to Croke Park, and I'm very proud of what we're achieving throughout the county. And this is one of those pieces where all of a sudden people are asking me, or I had one person come up to me and actually tell me, oh, you're in Europe. Did you hear about Galicia? I'm like, yes, but they are the stories that we continue to happily put out, right? And fair dues to them. They're putting in the slog. They're putting in that hard work. And it's starting to pay off. And again, us coming down as a county to them shows that, hey, we want to see what you're doing. We want to be part of it. Let's have a great festival of football. We're fortunate we're going to have the president, or Uachtaráin, Larry McCarthy, down there. Also, the ladies football, Uachtaráin, Micheál Naughton. So now all of a sudden, you're going to get their perspective on this, right? They're going to see, wow, geez, these guys love football as much as any other, man and woman in any parish in Ireland. So, yeah, I mean, let's drive it on. I mean, to me, they're a leading light, and, fair dues, hats off. A lot of this is on their own time, bat, and cost that they're putting in. So, Jesus, I couldn't say anything but the highest of praises for them.
No, I mean, again, next week, Hannah will be on. He'll be talking because he'll be basically,
okay,
I have him on next Wednesday. So he'll be speaking about the build up to it and the final kind of piece of input into it as well.
Oh, great choice, yeah. In football, Amsterdam are going to play Lara of Wicklow, and in the hurling, it's going to be Kilcool. So both European teams are going to play Wicklow champions. Or sorry, depending on the result. So both finals are an A versus B team. So obviously, I think it's Blessington B's in the football. So obviously they can progress to a provincial. I'm not sure who it is in the hurling, but it is Kilcool's A team are versus a B team. So we do know both. Both teams were facing off against.
On that, John, I know it's great to have let's put it this way, it's kind of to have this, as you say, like kind of a jolly up to go to Ireland. Now, again, jolly up is
I definitely disagree with you.
No. If we put
you're welcome to come out to Amsterdam or Lux and be running around in the piss and rain, Alan, and tell me if that looks like a jolly up.
Oh no! I mean, would it maybe be in a couple of years' time good, for example, to get a double header going in Rennes or Maastricht and get the Leinster teams out here? Because just we've always had this, like say with the League of Ireland teams. You move the venue, like we see it in the FA Cup in England. A small team moves to get more money. What if we got them onto our territory, get them really drunk, have them fall all over the pitch? Listen, we did it in rugby. We had touring teams come to Croatia. We used to get the opposing team absolutely ratted drunk. We actually could beat them the next day.
It's an idea. It's definitely a different tactic that I'll have to float out to whichever teams are. To be honest, we used to have. So for those of you that didn't know, we used to have the football teams come out and play us. And it didn't make a lick of difference. So I think
you have to be strategic about it, John. You have to basically treat them like.
To be honest, Alan, I want to beat them on their unfair play. I want to just beat them. I don't want them to say, we're hungover or we're jet lagged. I just want to beat them. I want there to be no excuses that a European team beat an Irish team just on merit. I don't want this stuff of, they're lucky. No, we want to beat them. I think that's why, when you talk about jolly up, I think there'll be a lot of teams tonight which I'll tell you now, like Barcelona gave us a good battering, and it, they had no intention of making it easy. And, I think any team that goes back, that puts in the work to achieve it. Maybe there's a jolly up, the night after, and we'll definitely enjoy a victory if we win, and look, we'll drown the sorrows a little bit if we lose. But, I would say for us, you want to beat them. And you want to beat them fair, and you want to, put down a marker. And if we're fortunate enough to achieve that this year, then magnificent. If it's not us, then it will be someone. So, look, no, you want to beat them just properly, right? No excuses. No.
Listen, you could just say, listen, boys, if they weren't professional enough to stay off the drink for one night, But
I think, after you could state that, St. Mark's and stuff, like we've always had, that's maybe one of the things, right, is I don't know of too many teams that we've played that have actually treated it like that low-hanging fruit, right? Like, I mean, I know St. Mark's were, had a county title, celebrated that, I think, the Sunday night and maybe the Monday, but they were back at training. And
no, they were hard at it, John. No,
so I would say, that's up to them to make that choice of whether they want to respect us. But for us, we don't want to be drawn into that, right? We want to go out and beat them. And I think that, like a good hard, like the Barcelona game was that, right? It was a good, hard, physical match with two competitive teams that wanted to win it, and they're the best kind of victories. And I hope that comes for whatever team it is in Europe, that first, I hope they celebrate it to high heaven. But yeah, to go out and win properly for me is the important thing.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye. John, thank you very much. Look, we'll speak with you just before convention so that we have a chat to sort of prepare what people should be looking out for in convention. And then, of course, hopefully we'll be celebrating a win in the Leinster Junior Football Championship and Hurling Championship.
Or hurling. Look, you know what? It could be, that's what I said. I could see this being, the football, and then Lux go home and steal a march, or maybe Belgium, and next thing we're all like, oh, right, Amsterdam have been building this up for a while, and the boys just went and did it. So, let's wait and see. Or the ladies, actually, hold on now, we've been a little bit remiss here. The Belgium ladies are going to play the British champions, so they could do it too. So be remiss of us to, exclude them from being the first as well.
Well, listen, you can follow us on our social media and check out what we're doing as well, and also keep up to date with all of the information coming from Europe on GGE Games. And on that note, say, John Murphy, thank you very, very much for your time this evening. And I said we'll have Jano on next, Hanno on next week, and then looking forward to, of course, this weekend more games all around Europe, and of course on the 15th in Galicia. John, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Alan. Take care. Bye, everyone.
And on that note, I'll say goodbye for now. And of course, we'll be back next Wednesday with some more of this Sunday's game. So for this moment, I'm Alan Moore saying take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And we'll speak with you, of course, next week.